Welcome to QRILLPAWS Arctic World Series. During this dog mushing season, we've been to Minnesota, Russia, Norway, and now it's about time for Alaska. For the next days, we're going to explore the world of sled dogs and their incredible journey through the untouched Alaskan wilderness. It's an honor for me to introduce you to what's known for being the last great race on Earth, the Iditarod.
Once a year, they come here, and there, hoping that good fortune allows them to reach here. It's an ambition for many that started months earlier. For others, it may have started decades ago. In theory, they're prepared for anything, but this trail is where reality meets anything goes, where a brutal wind blows, the cold bakes hot, and the snow blinds. Here, at times, might seem like a dream, or a nightmare, as this trail is a gauntlet of torture or beauty, serene, which may be fleeting, or relentless. It's 1,000 miles of igniting one's senses, sunsets you can drink, blizzards so thick they warp time, miles so long you may grow old in their passing, cold so bitter your fingers might burn off. And wrapped in it all, in all of its crazy, wild, self-mutilating reality, this beauty. The simple fact that at its core, its lifeblood, its artery to which nothing flows without it, a beautiful relationship between musher and his or her team. A bond, a pledge of trust, unity. Take one step out here without it, and a dream won't end, a nightmare will come of age. There's only one certainty on this trail. It's unpredictable. Pandora's box will soon be opened, and it's booby-trapped. And before the mushers reach Nome, they will conquer the Alaska Range, travel the interior, forge their way up the Yukon before reaching the Bering Sea and all of its beauty and beastliness.
Beauty out there just is spectacular. It's just like, I can't even believe that we get to do this. Competition aside, love for the dogs. I mean, I'm a nature lover. Just to see all these different places, that's enough to make it worth it right there. And then you add the love of the dogs, the love of the competition, the sport. I mean, it's just a very powerful experience out there to be out in God's beautiful country, you know.
Bombing down mountains pretty much, and trails, doing little S-turns, and I think more than anything you have to be a good sled driver, and you know, and making sure that everything's in line and your dogs are all lined out, you know, when you're doing all this. So that's pretty exciting.
I race dogs because I love the sport of dog mushing. I love the lifestyle of dog mushing. Whether you're using them to travel, whether you're using them for companionship, whatever it is, it's awesome to bring them out here and show them off to the world.
Every team dreams of winning. It's the goal. Getting there first is the outcome after years of failing and trial and error and on an ever-changing playing field.
I've had my whole life to learn from these dogs, and I think some of the lessons are finally coming home. In so many ways, they're just so much better than we are. So for me to kind of trespass on that or violate that and say, well, I got to be second instead of first or third, you know, at these positions, it's not about that. It's about doing this the right way with your mates.
I don't want to see my dogs sour and tired. That's not pretty. That's not good to look at. I want to see my dogs happy. Yeah, I want to win, but it's not the biggest priority. But yeah, I want to win. I've thought about it plenty.
I feel as if I've given you an adequate amount of television, and this year I'm going to win the race, it's going to be boring, and everyone's going to stand at the finish line and go, good show, good show.
Every race has its story, from Wilmarth, its first champion, Dick Mackey's 1-second win, the battle of the sexes between Swenson and Butcher, Boozer's barrage on the speed barrier, King's time at the top, Mackey's magic to the surge of the CV dynasty, and all the years in between. A man named Reddington whose dream is still alive, and the story of Iditarod is beginning its new chapter.
And now before the restart in Willow, we made sure to get some interviews with the mushers.
Well, my goal is to win. But, you know, in dog mushing, so much things can happen. You have to look at your dogs. Sometimes they are ready to roll, and sometimes they're not. If the dogs are ready and I feel that we have what we need, I will go for the win. And I think it's a pretty tough team. They can easily run 12, 14 hours in one stretch, rest for 3 or 4 hours and run one more. So I think I have a good chance to be the one who can be competing for the win.
Oh yeah, dogs are looking good and a good confidence booster, and I'm very happy with how the dogs are looking.
So you know this trail as well as anybody, and the way that you've trained this year with all this snow in the first part. What's your thoughts on how you should run this part?
How I should run this part? I'm going to be patient. And I talked to my good friend Billy Honey last night, and he said the last about 6 days in Ruby, they've only got 1 inch of snow. So my plan is to get to Ruby with the dog team and then start racing from there.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I try and focus on the race that I'm running, obviously, but this year's Quest was a really good opportunity for me to take it easy and rest a lot on the trail, and I think that it prepared us very well for this race. I have 12 dogs from my team, and probably 1 dog. I had a friend that ran 3 dogs in the Quest, and I probably got 1 dog that I still have 16 dogs I'm choosing from for the start tomorrow. But so I'm gonna have at least 12 dogs from the Quest team here, and you know, in being a leap year, we had a whole nother week, so the dogs got more rest, more time to recover. They're fat, happy, and I have a lot of confidence going into this race.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Willow. We are here for the start of the 48th annual Iditarod sled dog race. It's been running since 1973, and here we go again. Welcome. If we were at a basketball game, we would be courtside, but we're right nearly under the start line here in Willow. I'm Greg Heisner, along with 4-time Iditarod champion Dallas Seavey, former Yukon Quest champion and 7-time finisher of the Iditarod, Mr. Bruce Lee. Gentlemen, here we go.
Here we go again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is Iditarod. We got the excitement here. We got dogs lunging and barking. I'm ready to rock and roll. You guys ready for this?
Yes.
I'm really anxious to see how this snow just affects these first few runs, because we know weather is always a big player, but this year Alaska weather's doing it right in the beginning.
You know, one thing that I see different from last year is we are starting this race knowing it's going to be a slow race.
Okay.
I think one of the factors that made last year and the year before slower was that there was this possibility that it would be a record-breaking race, or that the competitors would need to go 8.5 days. Nobody's thinking that they need to do an 8.5-day race right now.
Right.
They're going out there thinking 9, 9.4, 9.6.
Yes.
And if they run that pace, they might actually do a 9.6 if they plan for that from the starting line. So
Very, very difficult to repeat in this race, though. We've seen that throughout history. Very difficult to win it 2 years in a row.
Yes.
So Pete's got his work cut out for him, but again, he's got to go out here with a sense of confidence that he didn't have in the past.
This trail might suit him more, but I think what Aaron's done, when you look at his finishes here, all these top 10 finishes, he's been good at putting himself in the position to win if the opportunity came for him to go through that. But he's always had a little bit more difficulty, it seems like, from Unacleat to White Mountain. That's kind of been where I just observing him, see him not quite keep the pace.
Yep.
So.
You know, my dad's feeling very confident. I'll just call my dad. Yes, it's Mitch Seavey, but he's my dad to me.
Yeah.
You know, he's feeling very confident about this team. We've seen him bring excellent dog teams to the starting line year after year. The question is, can he run this team to the finish line expertly? Bringing a great team to the start is not enough. You've got to take that and keep it a great team for 1,000 miles while doing everything right. He is, I'm not sure, I don't know exactly how old, 60 years old, that's close enough.
Yeah, I think he's just turned 60.
You know,
right?
and I will say, I mean, this is the analytical side of me talking here. We haven't seen a musher truly be competitive past 60. We've seen him do it at 57, 58, 59. We haven't seen him do it at 60. That does seem to be a magic cutoff. Think Doug Swingley, Jeff King, you know, and I hope my dad's got one more monster race in him here, and maybe he's got 10 more. Maybe I'm just thinking of 60, because if we're coming back racing here again real soon, he's one of the guys I'm always worried about out there on the trail.
Jessie Royer, boy, we wish her well. She's great to have out on the trail, and How great would it be to have Jesse Royer get to that Burled Arch in Nome in first place?
I would love to see that.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, I'm torn because there's, of course, many people that I'd like to see have great races.
Yes.
Many people I'd like to see win this thing.
Yes.
But Jesse's definitely one of them that I think has paid her dues big time. She's been here again and again. She's shown us that she can be in the top few spots here and do it well with a nice, strong team. I think she's a real contender.
Yeah.
You know, we see a pretty good run going here, too. Second last year, first year before that, fourth the year before that, never outside of the top 10, you know, his seventh being his worst finish. So obviously a key pick to win it. He's not as excited about this team. He's always saying, oh, I've got some nicks and dings. It's not the best team. I don't have all the dogs I wish I'd had here. But he said that every single year. So my second question to him was, is this like what you say every year, or is this for real? And so we'll see here. I'd love to see Ryan have a good, solid finish. We know he's capable of being right there. You know, he finished 14th a couple of years ago. He's had a few races that he hasn't finished, so I'd like to see, you know, consistent.
Patience.
Yeah.
We need patience out of Ryan.
We need patience, big time patience.
So you'll appreciate this. There's a historical reference before you, Greg. When I talked to him over there preparing his team, he said, I'm going to take it easy this year in the beginning. But we've heard that before.
Oh, man.
And then he shows up in Nikolai
He's
first.
in the top 5 in Nikolai. But look, Ryan's a great guy. I enjoy hanging out with him. He's got that funny smile that just kind of erupts out of his face. And a real cheerful guy. So we certainly wish Ryan well and a great competitive finish.
You know, I think top 10 is very realistic. I think top 5 is quite doable. And it's not out of reach for him to win this thing. You know, I know that in Norway there is a lot more, the type of dog is more a deep snow, harder working dog, a little bit slower pace than some of the Alaska teams we see here, but this might be a trail that's perfectly tuned for Thomas Warner. So I think that that's a very good, real contender in this race.
And a great guy. We love having him out on this trail. Headed down the trail now for a second time in his mushing career, Thomas Warner on his way to Nome.
Sure, you know, and he's one that your stats from the Iditarod sheet are going to be deceptive. Obviously, he's a multiple-time Yukon Quest champion. He knows how to win a race. He knows how to race to the finish. 2016, he was leading the race much of the way and racing right with us in the top of that race. And, you know, clearly there as a competitor, knows how to do it, was so close to having a successful, you know, top finish there. I think he's one that could, you know, go from finishing 20th 3-4 years ago to being in the top 5 or the top spot. I mean, don't roll him out to win the thing.
And he also told us in our sit-down interview at the banquet that he's undergone a philosophical change and almost a maturity in his mushing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the snow continues to fall here in Willow. We're being told it's falling all the way to the Alaska range, so these teams will be in this deep snow, and it's getting deeper by the hour, and that will continue on into the night and probably into Monday morning or tomorrow morning, depending on where you're watching. So, 58 teams out on the field, guys. Here we go. What do you think? Closing thoughts.
Iditarod has started. There's always weather of some kind to contend with. I'm really interested to see how this first third of the race sets up with these conditions and how that affects the middle part on the Yukon. I think the Yukon's going to be really interesting this year. Great teams out there. It's a highly competitive group of mushers.
We're going to see an awesome race, right? That's what I know. This is one more adversity, and that's what's amazing about the Iditarod is we see the best mushers in the world competing in a wide array of challenges. This year happens to be about snow, right? But they know that at the front. They know that off the first steps of the race as we're getting buried in snow out here. So their paces are already going to be adjusted for that schedule. We may not see some historically slow race because they are calculating that into their schedules from day one. I don't think it's guaranteed that this is going to be some, 9.5 or slower race. We may see this a little bit quicker. It is going to be interesting to see how from here to Nikolai plays out. It's going to be interesting to see 24 strategies. We might see some variation because mushers are taking it easier in the beginning. They might actually go farther for that 24. It's a whole other twist, but we'll see what the best mushers in the world, with the best teams in the world, think is the best way to cover this trail. So they actually today set out on the first miles of the race, leaving Willow and continuing down the trail from there. Now right here we're seeing the mushers going through the checkpoint of Yentna. This is the first checkpoint on the Iditarod Trail.
Some mushers will stop here. Of course, we see Kaiser, Massacot, Smith, Pappas, and many more go right through that checkpoint. Looking at the stats, most mushers stay there between 2 and 8 minutes, which is essentially enough to pick up some straw. That's what the dogs are going to sleep on. They're going to pick up the fuel to cook for the dogs and maybe a little bit of food supplies. They're going to take that down the trail a little ways, and then we're going to see them stop. So you see right there, Pete Kaiser still in lead, Massacot right behind him. They're going to stop and give their dogs a rest. You see the teams lined out here. All the teams have kind of been pulled in and parked on the right-hand side. They're coming from kind of the long end of the shot here, and they come across this little lake and park on beautiful Puntilla Lake. So the mushers are going to be rolling in here, most of them stopping, but a few of them, like Aaron Burmeister here, was the first musher to leave the checkpoint. He came in and was just there for a few minutes, got his dogs a little snack, and he's got his nice, beautiful ruff draped over his neck there. That's going to be an important piece of equipment as they take off from this checkpoint and head up over the top of the Alaska range. There's a lot of strong wind up there, and we get reports right now that that wind is going to be blowing. He'll be thankful for that big ruff there. So you see he's just giving the dogs a snack, give them a little meal just to keep them happy and trucking down the road. He's going to take off from this checkpoint and probably be resting a little bit farther down the trail because he was only there for, I don't know, a dozen minutes or something. You see some other teams starting to get ready to go, starting to get a little bit antsy here. The mushers have taken a rest. It depends on the musher. Some of them it was 2 hours, some it was more. This is Thomas Warner coming into the checkpoint here. He's easy to pick out with his orange there. He's a bright musher. You see him pulling those food drop bags out of his trailer. So when you pull into the kind of check-in area, you're going to load those drop bags into your sled so that you can kind of carry them over to your parking spot without having to manually carry them. Then he was just putting some fuel in his cooker to melt some snow and heat some water to feed these dogs. Sure, yeah, why don't you pull up the map data here? Let's take a look at this. So we're working our way towards the front here. We're starting to see these groups of mushers, pretty thick packs. This is coming down into Roan. So the mushers on the right-hand side of our screen here, we see them kind of getting towards the bottom of the actual Delzell Gorge. They're still in difficult sled driving country, though, until they actually get into the checkpoint of Roan. Now, so far, we just have Thomas Werner and Jor Olsum outside of the Roan checkpoint on the trail. This is out into the Farewell Burn kind of area. This is a lot of rougher terrain in the middle section of this with bumpy sections, but this heavy snow should have helped us in portions of this. As you start getting closer to Nikolai, So the first musher into Nikolai this year in 2020 is Richie Deal. Now we'll see if he can break the curse of the first musher to Nikolai here, and he's got a beautiful looking dog team running down the river. So if anybody can do it, I think this team can right here. They're looking strong. Now he has been rather aggressive getting to Nikolai. That was a bit of a gamble to get on a better trail, being out in front of the race. But take a little bit of a risk with a few less hours of total rest. I think to this point, coming into this checkpoint, he's had about 14.2 hours of rest so far. But if you see these guys rolling up the hill, man, they all look nice. They're still attacking the trail. They're charging up the hill. That's a nice looking dog team right there. Next team coming in is Jessie Royer. Now, she's also been a little more on the aggressive side, but not in a crazy way by any means. She's racked up, it looks like 15.5 hours of rest, which is pretty impressive to be here only about 23 minutes behind Richie Deal. And she came in again with all 14 dogs, just like Richie. You can see her fur ruff out there over her head is all frosted up. It was about 30 below zero over the night when these guys were running here. So you can definitely see the signs of that there. The ruff is frosted up, you've got that face mask all frosted up, and it can make it difficult as a musher to eat anything out on the trail. The third musher to arrive in Nikolai was Travis Beals. He came in just 32 minutes behind Richie Deal. Nice looking dog team again. He has all 14 dogs cruising down the Kuskokwim River here, or the South Fork at least, coming into the checkpoint. Again, he's all bundled up. You can see the ski pole sticking out kind of his sled sticking up behind him there. It's a good sign that he's probably been helping these dogs down the trail. It has been soft, kind of slow trails, so it is definitely beneficial if you can be a somewhat athletic musher and help your dogs get down the trail. You got stalled out there coming up the hill. The dogs pull into the checkpoint and there's all the people around, and they're all stopped looking around, and Travis is back there trying to get the sled the last 10 feet up into the checkpoint. Next musher coming in here is an easy one to pick out from the crowd. He's rather brightly dressed. This is Thomas Warner from Norway. He came in 1 hour and 25 minutes behind Richie Deal. He came in with 14 nice looking dogs right there. They're really stretching out and kind of gobbling up the miles here. That's a nice looking team. I'm really impressed with this gang. They've had a nice easy run to this point. I shouldn't say easy, but it's been a casual schedule, which is kind of nice to see. He hasn't taken that much rest, but he's broken up the runs in a nice way. So I think he's in a really good position. Not far enough behind the leaders for it to be at all concerning at this point. 1 hour and 13 minutes, that's nothing at this point in a 1,000-mile race. And look at those dogs. They're perky, they're chomping at the bit, wagging tails. I mean, this is a really solid looking team, and it makes it very difficult to even pick a favorite at this point, because all of these guys are within a couple hours of each other, plenty close, and they all have really nice looking dog teams. So this team right here is Mitch Seavey. He came in about 2.5 hours behind the leader, within striking range as well. It's a comfortable position to be in. He has all 14 dogs coming into the checkpoint, looking pretty strong. Now we've seen both him and Thomas Warner earlier have that little trailer that they're pulling behind their sled right there. It gives you a little more room when you're packing your sled. You know, if you're going to camp outside of checkpoints, it's nice to have that room. Also, you can put some more of your supplies in there and allow you to carry dogs in the front compartment of your sled. This is Brent Sass. Now, he came in here, he had stopped not too far out. He actually stopped about 42 miles prior to the checkpoint of Nikolai. Many of these mushers stopped during this previous run, but he came a little bit closer to Nikolai than most, and he would end up going through this checkpoint fairly quickly. He was only here for a number of minutes, not a rest necessarily, so much as just time to pack up some of the supplies that he would need to then go outside the checkpoint and stop. They piled into the Nikolai checkpoint, one after the next there. It was pretty neat to see them each coming in. Really nice, strong-looking dog teams after having spent a very cold night on the trail with temperatures down around 30 below zero. Most all the teams stopped in the Nikolai checkpoint with the exception of Brent Sass, who was there for only about 9 minutes before hitting the trail, but he would only go about 12 miles down the trail before stopping to rest his dogs. Now, after him, we had Jessie Royer out of Nikolai, along with Richie Deal right beside her there. His tracker isn't working at the moment. Then it was down to Wade Mars, Aaron Burmeister, UR, Travis Beals, Lance Mackey, Thomas Warner, Pete Kaiser, all coming out of there fairly close together. Those teams all took very close to 4 hours. It's kind of like that's a prearranged agreement almost between the mushers that it's going to be a 4-hour stop there. There was plus or minus maybe 20 to 30 minutes. But it got interesting as the teams were going along. Royer, who left in second position from the checkpoint, quickly moved into first position over this, I guess I would say a normal trail. I was looking at some past times. It's pretty average for this run between Nikolai, the checkpoint we just saw him leave, and the checkpoint of McGrath, which has just come into view. It's fairly normal for this to take about 6 hours to cover that. I think Jessie Royer did it right at 5 hours and 58 minutes. So when we see the little stopping here, there's a little bit of glitching in the GPSs just simply because this is a very remote portion of the world. So anyway, Jessie Royer was the first musher into the McGrath checkpoint, where there is a special award. So she was presented, I believe, a beaver hat and mittens for being the first musher to the checkpoint of McGrath, followed closely by Richie Deal just 9 minutes later, Aaron Burmeister 44 minutes after her, Thomas Warner, and Joar Olsson after that. So it's an exciting race, and these teams are all on their way to the Takotna checkpoint. If they have gone through the McGrath checkpoint at least, they're going to Takotna. Many of the mushers will take their 24-hour mandatory layover there at Takotna.
To talk to some of the mushers getting into Takotna, and first up is Jessie Royer.
So I do, well, this is just some muscle liniment and stuff that I'm doing next, but Kim Henneman is one of the, Dr. Kim Henneman, she's one of the vets here. So I learned, she's a homeopathic vet, so the pills that I do, I've always done probiotics for years, but I do like 4 different kinds of probiotics. But then instead of the Prilosec and the Pepsid that everybody does, I do licorice and papaya. So every checkpoint, they get licorice, papaya, and probiotics. That's the 3 pills that every dog gets. I know Yor was like, that's a lot of pills. It's like, yes, it is. It gets old, but licorice root supposedly heals ulcers faster than anything. So, which, you know, is better than just the Pepsid or the Prilosec, which is supposed to prevent, you know, it's more of a drug. The licorice is more natural. And the papaya is just for digestion, you know, and stuff. So that's what they all get at everyone. But then I have like stuff for natural anti-inflammatories, you know, for any sore dogs. I have all kinds of homeopathics. The homeopathics is what I learned from Michelle Phillips, and that's huge. So, I mean, there's obviously some viruses or stuff going around, but I've only gotten, well, 3 dogs earlier that were a little sick, but like 1 meal, and that was it. And I have 1 coming in here, but he's already better too. So I think as soon as I see anything on the trail, man, I'm stopped and I'm giving them whatever it calls for, you know? And I think it just makes a big difference in getting them over it faster.
25. You getting 24? Yes, sir. Okay. Number of dogs? There's 12. 12? Yep. Right ahead. Right ahead.
So how was your run over here?
Well, steady, like the rest of the runs. It's this team is not on charging team, it's more trotting team. So they've been doing good the whole way.
You've been just kind of gradually moving up a little bit. So
yeah.
That's that steadiness.
Yeah, I think that's the way I race actually. So I just try to keep the, I don't know the English word, flytsonen we call it in Norway. You know, so it's kind of floating. You know, and it doesn't, not too much power, not too slow. You know, just try to go the speed and the power the dogs have to put on line on the condition you are on. Actually, that's what I'm focusing on. So if it's soft, you know, the speed goes down, but the dogs are just still comfortable when they're running.
Did you consider going anywhere else for your 24 at all?
No, this was the plan, to go here.
How was that trail to McGrath for you in the position you were in?
It was soft some places and some places hard, but it was, it wasn't soft places.
But you'd kind of run on that kind of trail, and the Finman, I know where it got soft and hard. So
that's typical Norwegian trail. Yeah, it's not very often we get trails that are really hard. Sometimes, but not very often. So dogs have to be used to running on, different conditions.
So, what's your thoughts about where your position is? Just last question here. When you're thinking about the race and planning, I mean, how do you like where you are at right now?
Well, I called, the first stage down here is the transport stage. You're going to move your dogs here and try to keep all the dogs healthy and be in position. So I am in position, so plane, check one. Yeah. It's okay. The next one, it's a little difficult part, the one that comes now onto the unique elite, actually. Because you want to stay in position and maybe get ahead or be there, but you have to kind of start some move. So that's the difficult one.
Yeah.
And then you just go.
There, but we are here at Takotna, approximately mile 329 on this Iditarod trail. I think we have 20 teams in now. There are 5 that have gone on to Ophir. Ophir's another 23 miles down the trail, and it's just a cabin there. And really, these are some of the more interesting hours on the entire race until we get into the Bering Sea coast, as we have to pull out the calculator and start to do some math and trying to figure out who's truly in the lead of this race. I know of the 5 teams that have gone through here, there are a few of those teams that have enough food drop bags up in Cripple. So they could, before maybe even the sun comes up, but maybe a few hours after that, could be headed towards the halfway point of Cripple. Of course, there's a halfway prize there as well, and they may be making a move there.
Like you're saying, it's been a busy day. We started seeing the mushers heading through. So this year we have them through McGrath, heading into the checkpoint of Takotna. Jesse Reuter was the first musher into Takotna, followed closely by Richie Deal, Aaron Burmeister, Thomas Warner, Jorl Olsum, Ryan Reddington, Pete Kaiser, Jesse Holmes was shortly after that. Matthew Failer, Aaron Peck kind of were the ones coming in there to stay in Takotna. We saw a few mushers take a short break in the previous checkpoint of McGrath, and those ones we'll see go right on through the checkpoint of Takotna to take their mandatory 24-hour rest farther down the trail. The first one out of Takotna was Brent Sass. He set out the trail over the 22-mile trail to Ophir, where he would then take a nice long rest. Other mushers that had settled in back in McGrath, we'll start seeing them leave here real soon, that have taken a rest there, like Michelle Phillips, that's number 17 just out of McGrath. She took a nice rest in McGrath and then went through Takotna on down the trail, as did Paige Drobny and several others. So this is to be really confusing in this section because mushers start leapfrogging. One musher stops to take a break and the other one goes past them and keeps on going down the trail. So it can make it very hard to tell who's in lead, particularly when they're taking their 24-hour breaks. So we see number 2, Travis Beals, now heading over to Ophir. He's in a strong position right there. He would be the only musher to stop and take his mandatory 24-hour in Ophir. Lance Mackey is going real fast there. He caught up with the other guys, and he also would go through Ophir, taking a short break there, continuing down the trail. It's a very common strategy for mushers to take a rest in McGrath, go through Takotna, through Ophir by about 11 to 15 miles, depending on the musher strategy, take a short rest there, and then complete that run to Cripple. But now we're seeing them stack up in Ophir. The first musher out of Ophir was Paige Drobny and Michelle Phillips. Those two stayed right together for quite some time and are still traveling together down the road. They would take a break about 20 miles out of the checkpoint. Then my father, Mitch Seavey, was out in third, Brent Sass right behind him. Now, Brent Sass seems to be in fourth place, but he's coming off a large rest, allowing him to complete this next run without stopping to take a break because he had just taken a long rest in Ophir. So this is where the musher took their last rest makes a big difference. Kelly Maxter also went through Ophir, and now that's kind of our main pack right up there. We have Brent Sass, Michelle Phillips, Lance Mackey, Paige Drobny, Mitch Seavey, Kelly Maxner, all on the trail heading over to Cripple. Travis Beals remained in Ophir for his 24-hour layover there. Most of the other top contenders remained in Takotna for their mandatory 24. Back in the Takotna checkpoint, teams were starting to get ready to leave over the night. It was a busy checkpoint with most of the teams stopping for their 24-hour mandatory rest in this very popular checkpoint of Takotna. You can see the hubbub around here. Mushers are zipping all over the place. It's a great spot to camp your dog team, but it is a little bit busier. You know, it has more amenities, nice hot water for the dogs, which speeds up the chores that the mushers need to do, great sleeping accommodations, and also good food for the mushers. But that little bit busier atmosphere makes it easier for the mushers to get distracted and maybe not get as much sleep during this time as they should. Also, there's a few more distractions for the dog teams out there. So some mushers do prefer the more remote checkpoints of Ophir and Cripple to take their 24-hour layover in.
Well, brother, you're back. You're in the Iditarod. You're in, well, technically the lead, but who knows with all the math. What's the idea and the thought process that goes on with you in determining whether you stay here or go on to Cripple?
Well, my plan is to go on to Cripple, but before I make the final decision, I'm just going to feed the dogs and make sure they eat really well here. and then I feel like they'll have the fuel in the tank to push on to Cripple. But I'd like to get to Cripple. Cripple is getting close to the halfway point. These dogs just ran the quest, and they're pretty dialed in on taking their big rest at the midway point of the race. So it's not that much of a push to get them to the middle of the race before they're 24. So that's the idea.
Plus, you might get a little gold in the deal, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. There's gold there too. Yeah, well, yeah, that'd be great too if I get there first. But by the sounds of it, there's a couple more guys on their way here right now. So yeah, but yeah, no, it's a beautiful night, and we'll get the dogs some rest and some food and push on.
You know, I'm always watching very critically when teams go through checkpoints, because I view that usually as a little bit of wasted time, however much time it takes them to load their supplies in the sled. You know, being able to get in and out of checkpoints quickly is important. And I'll be honest, that's never been my dad's strong suit here. But no, his team looks beautiful. This is a little bit, I don't want to say quite like Allie's situation, because it's not, but my dad, Mitch here, has taken more rest, I think, than anybody in the top of this race, with the exception of, I think Aaron Peck has a little bit more rest. But prior to Takotna, he took 20.75 hours of rest, over an hour more than Allie has taken up to this point. He is traveling at a good speed, but it's a team that I feel like should be maybe even going faster. But I really hope, obviously I'm kind of cheering for him a little bit, I really hope that his team has made it through this early part of the race at an easy pace, and that extra rest is going to help him. But he is in a good position, but not the strongest position by any means. If I had to bet on a musher, one musher right now, it'd be hard to say that he would be the one I would bet on, but I, of course, am cheering for him, and it's a very nice-looking dog team, I'll give him that. The first couple teams are on the trail. At least Jessie Royer is on the trail. She was the first musher out, having completed her 24-hour layover in Takotna. She took off at about 12:24 local time. Now, about 33 minutes behind her, we're going to see Richie Deal on the trail. About 45 minutes behind her, we're going to see Thomas Werner and Aaron Burmeister. There's a few minutes in between them there. So they're all getting prepared to take off. And then Yor Olsen will leave the Takotna checkpoint about an hour and 5 minutes behind Jessie Royer. But for now, we have Jessie Royer on the trail, traveling. I think we're going to see a really fast run time from her from Takotna to Ophir. You know, when she gets to Ophir, Travis Beals will still be there taking his 24-hour layover. She'll undoubtedly pick up some supplies in Ophir and move out down the trail, probably between about 11 to 15 miles, stop and rest the dogs, well, actually a little bit farther than that probably, stop and rest the dogs, and then go the rest of the way into Cripple.
When we see those teams coming from behind get here, having come off their 24-hour rest, and then we'll know who's got the lead, who truly has the lead.
Yeah, and there's even more to it than that. It will be easier to assess, but there's different ways of running this from behind us to Cotton. I mean, we're right here at the apex of the race right now, you and I. I mean, the very first teams arriving here, but the ones back here might not even stop at Cripple. They might break up the runs to Ruby in 3 different runs and just kind of skip on by here, pick up some food, and head on up the trail. So the complexity's there. Plus, as soon as we hit Ruby, the option comes to take that 8-hour mandatory anywhere on the Yukon River. So again, you know, it's kind of checkmate. You know, they keep adjusting their schedules, where they're going to hit, where they're going to rest. So there's still a lot of strategy going on at this point.
Now on the race over to Cripple, Jessie Royer would be the first of this pack to arrive at the Cripple checkpoint. And then one after the next, they would start kind of following her into that checkpoint there. Now here's where we start to see different strategies play out. How much rest are the mushers going to give their dogs coming off the mandatory 24-hour rest? It's a very important part of the race. We've talked about it the last couple days as we've led into the 24-hour rest. But just as important as positioning yourself well coming into that break is how you utilize that boost you get taking a 24-hour break. Coming off of that, I think it's very important to maintain that speed over the next couple days. So keeping the run shorter is very important here. Jessie Royer would be the first musher to arrive in Cripple, and she would not stay in Cripple. She pulled in there, took just 11 minutes to pack her sled, and then continue out of the checkpoint, ultimately moving on another 17 miles down the trail, positioning herself so that she can now reach the next checkpoint of Ruby. That's checkpoint number 11. She can reach that in one easy run from where she's currently camped. Aaron Burmeister would also follow her out and camp on the trail, with the remaining mushers coming into the Cripple checkpoint, deciding to camp there, some of which have now left the checkpoint. And what we're going to see here, and what we have seen here, is those mushers that chose to stay in Cripple decided on about 4 hours. Thomas Warner stayed for nearly 5 hours with the longest break. Pete Kaiser stayed for 3 hours and 57, the shortest break of the mushers that decided to camp there. I've looked at this video a couple times now, kind of analyzing it. She looks strong coming into the checkpoint. The dogs aren't driving. I see a few kind of looser lines, which isn't uncommon when the dogs are, all of a sudden a little bit distracted by the checkpoint. But I'm a little bit concerned that Jessie is driving to take a lead in this race when she's currently in the lead because of her speed. So I'm hoping that she's not sacrificing her speed now to cash in on a little bit of a lead, because a lead can be lost so easily and there is so much race left to go. So Aaron comes in with a little more pep in his step. The lines are a little bit tighter here. He's running a little bit smaller team with only 12 dogs. Aaron's not a small guy, so that number of dogs may make a difference as we get farther down the trail. But you see here, these dogs they're driving, they're digging. This is a nice looking team. Aaron's dogs are, I think, more accustomed to doing longer runs. He was in the checkpoint about 13 minutes, swapped out some of the boots on the dog's feet, packed up the straw and the food that he would need to camp a little bit farther down the trail. I think this is a good move for Aaron. I'm not 100% convinced that he will take his mandatory 8 in Ruby, whereas I'm nearly certain that Jessie Royer will. So this is Thomas coming in here. He had a really nice run over to this checkpoint. I was really pleased with his time. I hope that he's not going a little too fast here. There's always that balance between having a nice fast run time and being able to kind of buy your dogs some more rest time versus pushing the pace a little too hard and being inefficient and burning too much fuel. So that's, of course, a real fine line that each musher knows best in their team. But Thomas had a great run over here. It took him 9 hours and 15 minutes of running time from the Ophir checkpoint. He stopped and rested for 2 hours and 55 minutes. So he had one of the faster traveling times coming over to this checkpoint.
The dogs are feeding off of your energy all the time, and when you get tired and maybe aren't functioning 100%, I feel like the dogs definitely kind of feed off of that. And so I make an extra effort when I'm tired to try and be positive and more upbeat. You can't fake it, but you can definitely be upbeat and not be downer, and so I think that's a huge part of this, especially at this point in the race, coming into here. That's a big long run, and I think one of the biggest things that I've found over the years is myself staying hydrated and lots of food really helps my ability to cope with the sleep deprivation.
We've been adapting well and taking one run at a time and being conservative, and still got 12 dogs, and I'm pretty happy with them. So we'll just keep plugging along and keep trying to do the best we can. Yep. Trying to do what's right for my team and me. Yep. I had a rough go. I was sick in Nikolai, and then on my way to Takotna, I fell asleep standing up on the sled and hit a tree, and that really jarred me. But before that, I've been dealing with cold boots. My boots went bad, so I've been dealing with cold feet. But now I got new boots, and life is a lot different, a lot better. Pretty happy that things are going better for me now.
I think I was maybe the 5th team in here or something like that, but there's people in Takotna that are way ahead of us on their 24, so I can only look at it from my team and the standpoint of how we're doing, and I feel like we're doing really well. I don't feel like I've made any mistakes as far as stopping or going or how far to go. A couple of my stops got a little longer than I had thought about initially, but in the moment it seemed like another 45 minutes of rest was not going to be bad for us.
And you did say they're eating like alligators.
They are eating really well, and even one of the best things this race is I never went through that slump in the beginning where they just didn't want to eat. Everybody ate every meal, not like they are now. Now they're in piranha mode, but I don't feel like they ever got dehydrated or low energy. They all ate. Yeah, I'm happy.
There's a lot of teams at the halfway mark that have a real shot at winning this race. And that's not normal. This is a very competitive race with everybody close together. But over the next couple of days here, we're going to start to see a lead group form. Then we're going to see kind of that second pack begin to form. And within that second pack, there might be 1 or 2 mushers that have the ability to launch forward and catch up with the leaders. And that's going to be fun to see. They're now on their way over to Ruby, and their first musher has reached the checkpoint of Ruby. That is Jessie Royer. She reached that checkpoint in about 14 and a half hours out on the trail. She was stopped and rest for about 4.5 hours at that time, moving for about 10 hours, and she will receive the first Yukon River Award for being the first musher into the checkpoint of Ruby. Now, not too far out of the checkpoint, we have Aaron Burmeister and Thomas Werner right behind him. Burmeister stopped and rested for about 3 hours and 40 minutes on the trip over here, while Thomas Warner stopped for just a little over 2 hours, about 2:15. Moving back down the trail, we'll see our musher Brent Sass. Now, he has moved all the way down this trail without having taken a rest, but he's coming fresh off of his mandatory 24-hour layover in the checkpoint of Cripple. So he's going to do a longer run over to the Ruby checkpoint and then take a longer rest there, I suspect.
How is this team looking to you, Dallas?
Yeah, this is a nice looking gang coming in here. I am a little concerned that Jessie maybe went a little too hard coming off her 24. And what I mean by that is she had this extra little zip in her dog team going up to Takotna. She was in the lead of the race at that point because she had the fastest team. And I would think that Jessie Royer would be a more scary musher to have to race against if she held on to that speed. So I'm a little bit concerned that she's put a little too much focus on positioning in this middle third and not enough focus on maintaining that really speedy team that she had earlier. With Thomas Warner, he arrived in the checkpoint just a few minutes, a minute ahead of Aaron Burmeister. He actually passed Aaron Burmeister on the trail shortly before coming into the checkpoint of Ruby. Thomas's team had the fastest run time of the top group of mushers that reached Ruby. So it's hard to break this down because all of these mushers stopped along the way, so you have to subtract out the time that they were camped on the trail. But once we subtract out that stop time, Thomas did the run in 9 hours and 17 minutes. Both Jessie Royer and Aaron Burmeister took 10 hours and 5 minutes. So Thomas was a solid 50 minutes faster than either of them on this section of trail. I think that's a strong, kind of a boost for his team, having that speed. He's run this section of the race really, really well. I think he left Takotna with a good team, and he left Ruby with a great team, and that's scary. He took a long break in Cripple. He took a short rest on the way over to Ruby. He had the fastest run time over here. And then he took his mandatory 8-hour rest here in Ruby. What that's going to do is solidify that speed. He didn't just build a fast team and then use up all that speed in a short section of trail. He's trying to make that, make it a routine for these dogs. And like I said, solidify that speed, lock it in. Once you build that speed, you've got to keep it. So I can see that he's clearly aware of that. He's done it the correct way. If he's not in a hurry, he's going to do really well. What I'm going to caution Thomas on from here is he is a little bit behind the lead mushers now, and I would say don't try to race and catch up with the front of the race. Just keep that speed, rest the same or a little bit more than everybody else, and let those other mushers come to you. And what I mean by that is there is still a lot of distance to go, and just simply traveling with that fast of a team, making up 30 to 40 minutes on each run, if he can do that, and giving half or all of that time back to the dogs and rest, he's going to be able to get down the trail briskly. He's going to be able to overcome any adversity that Mother Nature throws his way, if that's deep snow or a storm, and he's going to be a very, very tough musher to beat. If he tries to race and catch up with the front mushers right now, which are Jesse Royer and Brent Sass are currently in the lead, if he races to catch up with them, he could lose that speed, and then he's in the same situation as the rest of them. So keep the speed and don't be in too big of a hurry to catch up with the front of the race. You only have to be in the lead of this race for 10 steps, as long as those 10 steps are across the finish line.
If you and whenever you do get done, you come down there doing that meal.
Oh, really?
So hurry up and come on down.
All right.
They're starting to do that meal, so Thomas and Aaron and you guys, and come on down. Cool. I don't know how much food they have, but whatever they have, come and get it.
Congrats, Jesse.
Hey, Jesse.
Well, I'm not real big on seafood, but if you guys, I don't know how much food they have, but I'd just soon you guys came too.
Hey, Jesse.
Steak and eggs.
Huh?
I heard steak and eggs.
Steak and eggs?
That's what I heard.
Oh, okay. I don't mind that. I'm just not big on seafood.
So that's a really good display of sportsmanship, and that just brings me to mind that it's about the dogs, it's about the mushers, it's about the camaraderie of the show, right?
I can't eat all that food and have these guys come and going and watching me eat that. No way. Like, get over here. Come eat food too. Like, it's here. So as long as they have food, and if they can make it down while they're cooking it, then absolutely, by all means, come on over.
You're the bounty.
Absolutely. We all made it to the Yukon River. That's how I see it. We're all winners because we made it here.
Gathering all the mushers for dinner there.
Yeah, no, that's good to see. So there's the First to the Yukon Award is a 5-course meal that they serve up, and they do it very fancy, and I think there's $3,000 in in cash for them, or $2,500 in cash. It's presented to the first musher to the Yukon by one of the sponsors of the Iditarod. And it's always kind of an ironic scene in the middle of this dog race to have a 5-star chef out there cooking a meal and these mushers that are all dirty and nasty sitting down and having wine. And I don't know, it always cracks me up. But it's cool to see that being shared with the other mushers for sure.
Everyone's got odds at this point, you know. I mean, I saw all those teams. Like, I followed Pete. Pete came by me last night. He must have left right after me from Cripple. He caught me about 2 hours into it, and I was thinking, oh, he's just going to run away from me. And then I just was right on him the whole way until he stopped. So I feel like the teams are pretty evenly matched up. I think that people just got to not worry about the other teams yet and keep on theirs, because it's a long race still. There's another 600 miles, or a little bit less, I guess, now than 600, maybe closer to 500. But I think you just got to stay in the hunt. You just got to stay where you want to be, and we want to be towards the front. So I'm just going to continue running these guys, and I think that an 8 in Kel-Tag is going to benefit us. Now they're saying there's snowstorms and all that other stuff, but it could be 2 inches, so, and it won't even matter, you know, or it could be a foot and everyone's got to run through it. So
I will say, collectively, at this point in the race, this is the biggest group of strong teams I've ever seen here in Ruby. Usually it's like 5 or 6 here. Now
I mean, they're piling up. I mean, there's every dog team here has a shot right now. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I think that the Yukon will probably help sort a little bit of that out. We'll see.
I see 5 really strong, very equal dog teams here. I see another 5 or 6 that are just as strong, but through drivers not manage them as well, we'll start to taper off from here on.
But you make a mistake and they'll eat you like an alligator.
And that's the thing. I mean, the smallest mistake I make, or if I have a bad run, or if I haul a dog or anything, they're right there to pick up all the pieces. So I'm carefully trying to manage these guys, keep my fingers crossed, make all the right decisions, because it's not like you're going to lose a place or 2. You're going to lose 6 places. You'll be out of the top 10. So it's that close right now. And we'll see, and just keep my fingers crossed. It's not like 3 of us up here racing and then a couple teams here to pick us up. There's 5 of us racing pretty hard, and 5 more that are racing just as hard, ready to pick us off.
I left Ruby, and I was, the Iditarod trail didn't follow the old snowmobile trail, so we just ended up in like a foot of fluff. You know, so I was like, the heck with the Iditarod trail, and got back on the old snowmobile trail, and I didn't follow the Iditarod trail for a couple little ways, not too far. But like, you don't know any of that stuff until you get out there. You know, they're calling for weather tonight. We don't know what we're gonna run into until we get out there. So I don't have any schedules. I don't have any plans. I just go with it as I get out on the trail, basically.
Mitch, before he gets into your checking in information, I got some information for you that may change things. Shaktoolik is no longer a checkpoint for us. There will be no race personnel there. Your food drops, straw, and heat will be at Old Shaktoolik, 2 miles from where the checkpoint normally is.
Okay,
but
we'll have food supplies there.
You'll have food supplies, heat, and straw.
Okay.
But there'll be no race personnel at all there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
The sky's still falling.
The sky is still falling.
Okay.
But
and Nulato, what do we have there?
So Nulato is we will have race personnel there for you. There's going to be vets and a checker and a judge there, and a tent. The tent for the race, but I don't think the tent is for mushers to sleep. It's for the race personnel to have somewhere in comms to be. You can argue with them. Sure, you try with that.
That makes sense. You know, Shaktoolik, the food and supplies are already in place, but they're going to try to minimize interaction with the people there. So they've put it at Old Shaktoolik, the old town site that is. It's a couple miles away, but the mushers will still have access to their food and straw. You won't be able to leave dogs there if there's no staff there, so you won't be able to return any dogs home from that checkpoint. You know, I don't know that that's a major change for the mushers. I don't think that's going to change strategy significantly. Nulato, they're going to have dog drops, they're going to have food supplies, but the the creature comforts for the mushers aren't going to be the same. So they're going to be camping out with their dog teams on the river, which that can be a bit frustrating, particularly if you have heavy snow coming down. And it's one thing to not be able to dry some of your gear while you're camping at a checkpoint, especially if you take your 8 there. It's another thing if you stay there for 8 hours and everything gets soaking wet because of it. So that is it is a change. but at least they still have the food supplies there. That's the main structural change. If they had said there's nothing in Shaktoolik, that would have been a huge change, because that's a very challenging section of trail between Unalakleet and Koyuk. Shaktoolik is the checkpoint in the middle there. And, you know, having to carry the food the whole way would have made a big difference, but it sounds like they're going to have the food supplies for them. They're going to have the straw for the dogs and the fuel to cook for the dogs, but not the race staff on site.
The news in Nulato and Shaktoolik. Yep, and it's the Iditarod, so we kind of take it one day at a time, one checkpoint at a time, 1 mile at a time, and that's just another curveball throw in the mix, and it's going to affect us all the same. We're all going to have to change plans and deal with it as.
We're picking up here as we go into Galena, where Jesse Royer was the first musher in. Followed closely behind was Brent Sass, and then right behind Ewer Olsum, Richie Deal, and Ryan Reddington. These mushers all had run times between 6:28 and 6:45. 6 hours and 28 to 6:45, that is. Pete Kaiser, Paige Drobny, and Thomas Warner were the next in, followed by Aaron Burmeister, Lance Mackey, Michelle Phillips, Mitch Seavey, and Wade Mars. Now, all these teams had varying run times. Most of them came in at about the 6.5 hours, with the exception of Thomas Warner and Wade Mars, who did it just over 6 hours for a very fast run time. Brent Sass was the first onto the trail, having taken no rest in the checkpoint. He stopped and rested on the trail and was quickly passed by Jesse Royer and Richie Deal as they headed over to the Nulato checkpoint. Brent Sass would stay on the trail for about 5 hours. They would continue racing down the river there. Each of these mushers stopped for varying times in Galena. Yor Olsum, Lance Mackey, and Ryan Reddington would take their mandatory 8 back in Galena, so we don't see them leaving until towards the end. Most other mushers took between 3 and 4 hours. Coming into the Nulato checkpoint, Jesse Royer still had the lead in the race, followed closely by Richie Deal, Thomas Werner, Brent Sass after he came off his rest there, and then Pete Kaiser, Paige Drobny, Aaron Burmeister, Mitch Seavey, and Michelle Phillips coming in there. Yor Olsum and Ryan Reddington would round out the 10th and 11th position there. Nulato saw it kind of get changed up a little bit. Jesse Royer only stayed 3 hours and 20 minutes before pressing on. Some of the mushers stayed much longer, taking their 8-hour break. Richie Deal was there for 11 hours and 42 minutes, giving the dogs a very long break after having a little bit of trouble getting on the trail with some females in heat, something of a distraction for the boys. As they race towards the Caltag checkpoint, it really starts to stretch out a little bit. We see Jesse Royer, Brent Sass. He would needed to stop for another about 2 hours and 50 minutes on the trail on this section, but he's back in second place. Thomas Werner, Pete Kaiser, Aaron Burmeister, and Wade Mars all followed them into the checkpoint. All of these mushers had run times of approximately 6 hours. That seemed to be the normal run time, some as little as 5:55. Thomas Werner had a good run time at 5 hours and 32 minutes. Pete Kaiser had one of the slower run times at 6 hours and 16 minutes. However, we saw a big move by Mitch Seavey coming off of his mandatory 8 in the Lotto with a run time of 4 hours and 45 minutes. He is running in 10th place right now, but with a run time that's an hour and a half faster than Pete Kaiser and about, what are we looking at? 45 minutes faster than the second fastest musher, Thomas Warner. That puts him in position to be moving up the ranks. Speed is becoming important.
Richard, the checker here.
All right.
And first team into CalTag this year. We have a presentation from Adam Kosh from Bristol Bay Native Corporation.
That's awesome.
For the first team off the Yukon into CalTag.
And boy, is it nice to be off the Yukon. Wow, that's pretty cool. Thank you.
On behalf of Bristol Bay Native Corporation and its more than 10,000 shareholders, we'd like to congratulate you on being the first musher to CalTag Alaska. It's my privilege to present you, Jesse Royer, with the 2020 Bristol Bay Native Corporation Fish First Award, along with $2,000
wow.
and 25 pounds of Bristol Bay salmon.
I should have been
Congratulations.
first a long time ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's in good shape. I got 13 dogs. They're all eating good, and you know, we're a little slow, but I think everybody's slow just because of the trail conditions, the new snow, and the snow on the river was just not sliding the sleds. It was just a really like a sugary. It was like gliding on sand or something. Like the sleds just wouldn't glide. So everybody's slow. This new snow is actually helping a little bit because there's some more moisture in it. Okay. But it's also, so the sleds are gliding a little better on the new snow, but it's also making it tougher to find the trail. It's getting well wind blown and, you know, snowed in. So the teams coming ahead are everybody's gonna be breaking trail unless they're right behind somebody.
Yeah, which brings me to the next question. Do you want to be breaking trail? Do you want to be out in front of this thing with 360 miles or whatever it is to go?
Not really. I mean, breaking trail through a few inches is not a big deal, but if we have to start breaking trail through a lot of snow, then that's not fun for anybody. But I don't know how much it's snowing ahead. I heard there's more snow towards Unalakleet. Yeah. So that's not good, but somebody's got to break it out, I guess, and you know, you can't wait. The rest, there's too many people coming. You just got to go.
And Thomas Werner pulled in behind us. He's taking his 8-hour back in Ruby. You guys, you and Brent are here, and you're in the midst of your 8-hour rest. So compute the numbers for me. Help me with that.
I don't even remember what time I came in. You had more sleep than I have. Let's see. I left at 9:30. So I think I came in around 3:10-ish or something. Yeah. So I've been in only 2 hours, which means he's going to be able to leave. A
couple hours maybe in front of you.
Yeah, depending on how long he stays, because I have to stay another 6. Right. So he could be a couple hours ahead.
Which may not be a bad thing if he can lay a track down for you.
It'd be nice if he was only like a half hour to an hour ahead, because he could lay a track down, but it won't be windswept. Yeah. So a couple hours, well, by then the trail could be gone again.
My plan A, but you know, in the dog mushing, it's never things go. Was actually to go through with about 20 miles and then stop, but it's so warm, so I think it's good for the dogs to wait to the night and then cool off. Pretty much fur on those dogs though, so it's nice to, a little cooler will be really nice.
Did it go through your mind to go through? Did it go through your mind at all to maybe go through and kind of wait? And...
Well, I said if it goes easy down, I will go through. But I think it was not a mental hard trip for the dogs, but a physical hard trip because of the heat and soft trail. So that's why I think it's good for them to rest up the muscles and then fly down the trail.
You don't have to be G and Han them. That's the thing. Like, for a while it was like they didn't, because there's a bunch of different snow machine tracks, and some are harder than others, and some there was none in a lot of places. So it just kept getting worse, and I was like, I can either battle this or I can just feed them. And they enjoyed that a lot more than battling it. I'll tell you that right now. Didn't you? Yeah, it was good. It was a good decision. I've made the bad decision on that run, or the run from Galena to Nulato the last time, and that was the beginning of the issues for me. So you got to learn something at some point.
It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a fan of the warm weather at all. The dogs aren't. We've been in 20 to 40 below all winter, so this isn't our type of conditions at all. Dogs just tend to walk through it, and we get there, but they're just walking slow and hot. So it'd be much more convenient, but if it cooled down, I'd much rather have 30 below temperatures than 30 above any day, and today is close to 40.
Aaron's dogs are accustomed to much colder temperatures, like he's saying. He lives near Fairbanks up in Nenana, and it does tend to be very cold in that area. And traditionally, that's an area that has very cold temperatures and not a ton of snow. They do have some snow. It's almost always enough to mush, but it's not common for there to be feet upon feet of snow, like maybe in Trapper Creek, Alaska, or where some of these other mushers are from. So Aaron, it's really important. He's putting a lot of emphasis on the temperature. It probably is a very big factor for his team. So what I could see him doing is doing a much longer run tonight when it is cooler, and trying to take a longer rest tomorrow. That might go into his plan here. We may see him try to run, maybe not all the way to Unalakleet, but do a big chunk of that trail tonight, just to run as long as possible when it's cool. You may also see him take a very short break to try to complete that run before the sun comes up. I'm not sure what Aaron's gonna do exactly, but this warmer temperatures and deep snow is probably not playing to his favor at this point. Going back to yesterday evening, we saw the mushers reach the Caltag checkpoint. First in there, we had Jesse Royer, followed by Brent Sass, Thomas Warner, Pete Kaiser, Aaron Burmeister, and Wade Mars. Thomas Warner would be the first one on the trail, with Aaron Burmeister and Jesse Royer right behind him and running right next to each other. Wade Mars and Brent Sass were next onto the trail, again in a little bit of a pack right there. Behind them, we had Mitch Seavey, Ryan Reddington, and U.R. Olsum, in a kind of a threesome moving down the trail right there. Paige Drobny and Michelle Phillips would round out the top 10. Now, most all of these mushers would break this very long run into two sections. It's about 79 miles from Caltag over to the Unalakleet checkpoint. So most of the mushers stopped in what we call the Old Woman Cabin, about in the middle of that run, breaking it into even parts. Thomas Warner was the only musher to go straight through to Unalakleet, creating a big lead for himself, having not rested along the trail getting over there. Most of the other mushers stayed, but about 3 hours and 50 minutes seemed to be the common time. One musher, Wade Mars, stayed for just 2 hours and 40 minutes, moving him up in the ranks so that he was the second musher to reach the Unalakleet checkpoint. Jesse Royer and Aaron Burmeister were third and fourth into Unalakleet, but they got there in time just to actually not even get to see Thomas Warner leave. He was out the other side after taking 5 hours of rest and moving towards the Shaktoolik checkpoint. Brent Sass would go right through the Unalakleet checkpoint, but move only 10 miles down the trail before he stopped to rest his dog team. Behind him, we have Jesse Royer and Aaron Burmeister continuing to run neck and neck, chasing Thomas Warner down the trail. Shortly behind them, we have Wade Mars and then Mitch Seavey, who's moved up in the ranks. So we have a very exciting race with many of these mushers in the second group really battling it out, with Thomas Warner in the clear lead and definitely in the driver's seat.
Go!
Hey.
Hey, how's it going? What's your VIN number?
40.
40.
Hello.
Welcome to Unicleat.
008.
I'd like to introduce Alan Ivanoff, longtime employee for Ryanair, which of course is one of our very important sponsors. Alan, I know you have a present to make to Thomas.
Hey, Thomas. I have a presentation from Ryanair Service in the community of Unicleat on being the first musher into Unicleat. You get a Gold Coast Award and $2,000 in nuggets.
Oh, thank you.
Which
Oh, you have it.
taken
Yeah, that's
care
nice.
of.
I think that will be my first nuggets ever.
Whoa.
Very good. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yep. This is going home to Norway.
You got Jesse Royer coming into the Unilocleat checkpoint looking nice. They all got their little bandanas on there. Still making a fashion statement this late in the race. So Jessie's just had a fantastic run over here. She stopped for a nice rest along the way. At the Old Woman's Shelter Cabin, Jessie stopped for about 3 hours and 50 minutes to rest the dogs. From that point to this checkpoint, she ran for about 5 hours and 40 minutes, and then is stopping to park again here, take a little rest. Now, this is an important checkpoint along the way, very important stop for the dog teams, and a crucial strategic point along the race. Aaron did much the same kind of run schedule coming to the Unilocleat as Jesse Royer did. He ran to the Old Woman Cabin about halfway through this run, took about a 3 hour and 50 minute rest there, and then just did a 5 hour and 40 minute run into Unilocleat. He has a nice looking team. You know, he had been a little bit slower than Jesse Royer earlier in this race, and now their speeds have evened out. You know, they both, have essentially the exact same run time from Old Woman to here. Over the course of the last 79 miles, I think 10 minutes separate them in the run time.
My strategy is going to be doing what's best for this team, and through a run-rest schedule, through the temperatures, the heat of the day that we're dealing with, our only real weakness is warm temperatures, and coming in here at 35 above, it was hot. So I'm not going to ever ask the dogs for much when it's hot out. I just let them walk through it and keep traveling. We're not going to have any speed during these warm temperatures. I'll try to do as much running as I can in the dark at night and take advantage of it then. But again, we've had pretty much 20 to 40 below all winter back home. I can see the heat really affecting the speed of the team and the strength of the team. They're still traveling, but I'm not going to ask anything extra.
Straight up.
All right. How's it going?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hey, Brett, how goes it?
It goes good.
Real good.
There he comes. They're great. They're good. They're warm, but because it's warm out, but they're doing pretty good. I'm gonna. Oh, there's a checker. I'm gonna go through so I don't.
So, what's your name?
Brent.
Brett Bass.
Yep.
My number?
44.
44.
13 dogs.
13 dogs.
Josephine, get up there. Stay back.
Now Mitch had a great run coming over here from Caltag. He took a shorter break in Caltag, having just taken his mandatory 8-hour rest in Nulato, only a short distance up the trail, about 35 miles up the trail. Now Mitch had the fastest run time of any of the mushers between Caltag and Unilocleat. Jesse Royer and Aaron Burmeister, I think he took about maybe an hour and 20 minutes that he gained on them over this section of trail. So we've seen this team go from deeper in the pack, back on the river. They were not in the top 10. And now we've seen them accelerate into 6th place coming in here to Unilocleat with the fastest run time coming over here. We've listened to some of these other interviews, and the other mushers are aware of Mitch Seavey coming up from behind him there. And there's several more fast teams behind him. I think Wade was highlighting that.
Let's talk about Shaktoolik for a moment now. What a job the people of Shaktoolik did over there to get that checkpoint ready. They unified, they made a decision based on what was best for their community But they didn't just walk away after that decision. They unified, they came together, they came up with a solution. That checkpoint is 2 miles outside of, it's actually old Shaktoolik, kind of a ghost town. The new Shaktoolik is actually farther out into the closer to the Bering Sea, farther out on this spit. But there are old buildings there. There is windbreak for the teams. They're able to get all the food drops in there. There is straw, everything that the teams need to be safe and out of the elements. What a job by that.
So for the locals in Shaktoolik to go out of their way, you know, we just saw the image of this building. You know, the snow is drifted in. This is the old town site here. Nobody's living here now. The new town is a couple miles away. But for them to, you know, kind of rally together, move all these food and supplies to this location, set it up for the mushers, you know, get the machinery out there to plow out the snow and make a parking area. I mean, it's just phenomenal what they did in here to take, you know, a building that was under feet of snow and turn it into a really nice checkpoint for the mushers. What that says to me is, you know, yes, we're concerned about the virus. We have to be aware of our people and take care of our people here. But we're not going to leave the Iditarod stranded. We're going to help you guys out. And they have gone so just above and beyond here. It's just impressive. I mean, we just saw this building a few moments ago here with snow in there. I mean, and here they've turned it into a checkpoint. They've shoveled it out. You know, they've got water in there for the mushers. They drilled a hole in the ice for the water for the dogs. They've moved a wood stove in here. I mean, it's amazing. The mushers are going to be blown away. They're going to love this. And it's just, I don't know. I so appreciate all these villages along the way.
Jesse Royer and Burmeister run a bit with the same speed all the way. Wade Mars behind, and one of the fastest on the trail was Mitch Seavey last day. He did a really great run all the time, and he has a little bit more rest than the other ones. Exciting going over from Shak, as I told yesterday, to Koyuk. Really slow trail, really slug to go over. Every musher come in just told how tough it was and so on, and Brant even rested on the northern bay there when you go. And tight behind, like Thomas in the lead, but really tight behind the other ones. Reddington, Paige Drobny, Travis Beals, Michelle Phillips for running everybody for being top 10. So it was a really, really tight race, but I think like Thomas just controlling it from his front all the time and just see how the other one doing behind, and he just rests what he needs, and when they come into checkpoints, he just go before them. So I think it's really frustrated to never really see him on the trail, and he just pass through them all the time when they're coming in there.
Welcome to Koyuk. Thank you.
How's that trail coming in? Was it that weird to navigate?
Braking. I had to brake trail the whole way. So heavy going. I just go slow.
Still confident in your position, Thomas?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I don't know where the other are, but I think they have to go slow also. So, yeah.
Welcome.
Did you give them a little more rest at Shaktoolik than you planned on because nobody was pushing you?
I rested 4 hours and 20 minutes, I think.
Is that what you were planning on, or could you give them a little bit even more?
Yeah, I could have given actually a little more, but I wanted to be out of there before the other one went in. So. But still a long way.
Still a long way.
And
this snow goes all the way.
Yeah, so it's better to rest. And that's a good thing with that move I made, even though it's taking a chance.
Which move are you referring
to? From Caltag to Ingrid, that I pushed the whole way. But also put me in a position to rest more now.
Jesse, Thomas just pulled out as you pulled in.
Yeah, well, he left like 15 or 20 minutes sooner at Shaktoolik. Ready? Win! Hey, win! All right, Coulter. Hup, hup, hup.
Straight ahead. Straight ahead. On by. On by. Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Right out. It was about the same speed we were going. So if I lit a cigarette, the smoke would just travel with me. I mean, it was just that perfect when we were doing 5-6 miles an hour. Or we were doing 7-8 until we got passed by those snow machines. Then we went down to 4 to 5.5. It was terrible the last 3 hours coming in. We'd have been here an hour and a half quicker, but 18 miles out, 6 snow machines went by and life changed.
Yeah, there's a bunch of caribou over here and people were coming to hunt.
I'm sure they were all going with empty sleds and I knew they were hunters. They're probably coming from Unacleat or Shaktoolik or somewhere. But yeah, that's the way it goes. But and everybody behind me and has to deal with it. The only one that lucked out was Thomas, making it in the dark before the traffic light.
Did you see Thomas just pulling out on the ice?
I watched him. I was coming across the river coming in as he was pulling out. I said, there he goes. That's what I would do, leave him an empty nest. He's got tiger by the tail right now.
Well, we've been being conservative, tough trail, earlier cold weather, just giving the team lots of rest, and all of a sudden we're kind of speedy.
Well, everybody says you're a master of pulling them together and coming up here, and they know it's not just by cutting rest and not having them prepared. So it kind of I think your run up here kind of exemplifies what taking care of dogs can do at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. I think we probably have more rest than anyone else around us anyway, so the dogs have responded well. I don't have a big team, but I've got a big enough team, and evidently.
You've been here in this place a zillion times. Last thing, so I was explaining to people with Thomas's pulling out of here about when you guys all pulled in. I know it's not over till it's over, but explain to people.
He's pretty well out of reach. There's nothing we can do about that, and it might be a little anticlimactic for race fans, but we are already doing everything we can do to get there as fast as we can, and the big temptation to react is actually counterproductive. So he's got a solid lead. He's done a great job. He's evidently a phenomenal team and a good musher. So I don't wish him any ill, but it would take something bad. He'd have to break down and have to camp extra or stay super long in Elam, or something would have to happen to him. And he didn't get there by not knowing what he's doing.
I mean, nothing I could do. 4.5 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. I mean, it was like mashed potato snow, you know, so stay positive, brush your teeth 5 times. make yourself feel better. Yeah, I don't know, I mean.
And you couldn't really ask him for more.
No, I quit asking him for more. I just sat there. I mean, I ski poled a little bit for something to do, but yeah, no, I quit asking them. They zapped them big time. We haven't seen temperatures like this all season, so.
Yep, and I'm done.
Perfect.
When did the trail get better?
Up in the mountains. on top of the mountain.
It cooled down and got faster.
Yeah, and then it was going, Goldwyn was soft again. Well, drifted more. And then they got pretty good after Goldwyn. And they went fast. That was fun.
Nice, after the big slog, huh?
Yeah, it was nice to drive dogs, not see them swimming. So it was nice to have some good trails.
Everybody wondered if it was a little bold to only stay as long as you did at Zealand, but...
Yeah, but I have done that before. I know they can do it. And they look pretty good coming in.
Yeah.
Well, nobody see.
How was the bay? It was the temperature all the way down Gullivan Bay, was that good? They really go there?
Yeah, and before Gullivan was soft, and then after Gullivan it was really good. Yeah. I think it's more snow machines there.
When Thomas was first into Elim, and then the other teams just come there 1.5, 2 hours after him. So they never see him in the checkpoints, and Mitch and Jesse Royer coming in there second, third. And they took a rest there. Mitch took a rest there also, and everybody think that they need a rest for the team, but Thomas actually took one of the shortest rests there. And we thought it was a tough move, but obviously he know the team and know the dogs, so he had a great run into White Mountain. A little bit better trails in the last section there, going into Goldwyn Bay, and you saw on the running times and speed. So, and Mitch and Jesse second, third, running a steady race in there, and Aaron Burmeister and Brant Sass was pretty close by all the time between 4th and 5th place, but there was Brant who was first into White Mountain of them. He rested a little bit on the trail. He got 2-3 hours more rest on the trail, I think, than the other ones. Then behind there is a really crazy tight race. Wade Mars had a little bit slower run in there, was passed by UR also, and Reddington is there. Paige Drobny is still a strong, fast team. Travis Beals was also tried to take a little bit shorter rest in Elim, and he backed off a little bit, coming into 10th place into White Mountain. But it's a really tight race between 2nd, 3rd place, between 4th, 5th place, between 6th and 10th place. The only one that's not tight really is the winner of this year's Iditarod, Thomas Werner, who has his, as you tell, the golden carpet run. It seems like it's going really well for him all the way. No really struggles, no really problems, and so it's. I think he has his run of his life, it looks like, and with a really strong team. He got 10 dogs on the line out from White Mountain to the finish line in Nome then. And it was a little bit windy when they started out from White Mountain. We discovered yesterday some small breeze and some snow in the air and so on, but there was nothing who really stopped up the teams, what we can see. So Thomas had looked like he had a really smooth run in, and going to come in with a good and fresh team. It looks like they have no struggles on the way, really. And then Mitch Seavey was getting out from White Mountain after 8 hours mandatory layover, and Jesse Royer a couple of minutes behind him, and so they will fight all the way into the finish line between the 2nd, 3rd place, between the 4th, 5th place, between the 6th to 10th place to be in the top 10.
Oh, no worries. We were confused too. All right, your arrival date is 10:49.
We're here.
You're here.
I don't think I could have got another one, but I'd like to run the table.
That would have been really exciting. Where did you pass the last one coming in here? Do you remember?
Well, I passed Jesse the other side of Moses Point. And then Brent went out ahead of me, but I passed him again camped.
Well, nice job with these dogs coming up like that. They all said they knew you, they were in trouble when you showed up.
Well, I'm really proud of them. Not a perfect bunch, but they're tough. I wish like I said, I probably told you yesterday, I wish I had a couple more. But
yeah.
It was all right. Like, I was expecting more 8 hours, and I got here in, I don't know, like 7:20, so it was a little better than I was expecting, but still slow and painful at times. But we actually finally got into some wind, but at least it was more of a tailwind again, coming across Gullivan Bay. That's really the first much wind we've gotten into the whole coast. So yeah, it set up and was doing pretty good until we got in the wind, and then it was all drifted across the bay. So that slowed us back down. I was kind of hoping to keep a decent speed across the Gullivan Bay there, but it was all drifted in soft snow again, so it slowed us right back down.
It's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of adverse conditions with heat and snow, and it's been really fun. Good competition. Yeah, super happy to be here where we're at, and looks like we got one more exciting run ahead of us here, which is great.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Werner. Let him hear you. Okay, one last obstacle. Here they come. Thomas Werner, he's in the chute. Thomas Werner making his way to the Burled Arch in Front Street in Nome, Alaska. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your Iditarod champion for 2020, Thomas Werner, bib number 40.
Thank you. Very well done.
Yeah. You're here.
You're here.
Good.
A dream come true.
Yeah, that's for sure. This is actually a dream.
Who let you in, Thomas?
K2 and Bark, the one I've been using the whole race. They are, yeah, they are good. They are steady and going.
You're tired?
Yeah, a little tired now. Starting to relax now. That's dangerous.
Not so tired when you get here first, though, right?
Oh no, this is awesome. You know, it's I'm a little out of words. Well, normally not, but it's this is something special.
Yeah, we'll let you care for your dogs, and we'll get an interview with you in a little bit.
Congratulations, I'm your checker, and you go ahead and take care of your dogs, and when you're ready, we'll finish checking you out.
Extremely impressive when we look at the statistic and we see what the other mushers regularly are doing. If you want to win the Iditarod, you pick dogs that has experience. And I also know that when you're closing up to the finish line in the long races, that you are so tired. And when the dogs know exactly where they are and they know that this is closing up to the finish line, they often speed up a little bit. That definitely helps. So you have an advantage. There is an advantage if you have experienced dogs, I think at least. But when you do this, dogs that is Alaska or never seen the trail before, these dogs, they didn't know they was coming to the finish line when they went up Front Street, because they never done it before. So I think that's very impressive, and I think you have to go long back in time if we see a kid with no experience from Iditarod before that. I don't know if it's even happened before.
And we have Thomas, congratulations, with us live now. Guro, what do you want to say to Thomas?
Gratulerer. I'm just super proud and really happy. Yeah. And I'm so sad I couldn't be there and give you a big hug. And but I'm looking forward to you getting home.
Yeah, that will be a little while.
Thomas, when did you realize that you could win this race?
I think I realized I had a good chance before the race when it was snowing that much, and I saw the conditions going to be heavier. I knew that will help me a lot on the race. So I was kind of focused already before the start to do all the details and be racing from start.
Is it someone of your dogs who has really impressed you throughout the race more than you had expected?
No, they have just been awesome, the whole team. It's been incredible to drive them. They've been crazy, and even if you're doing long runs and you stop after 10 hours, they're screaming to go and popping the hook. And it's an amazing dog team. I never had so many good dogs like I have now. They are, yeah, it's just, you're just proud when you're standing on the runners.
And you haven't been sleeping for a while. What goes through your mind now? How tired are you?
Well, it's like, you know, you haven't been thinking about much, so you're kind of empty in the head, and so it's not much going on actually. But I think tomorrow will be probably more. It will sink in a little more, and but this race is you don't sleep more than 1 to 2 hours each 24 hours, so it's that will take some catch up.
Tell us about the race. What was the most difficult parts?
The most difficult part was actually that got warm for the dogs. So it was some stretches that was really warm in the middle of the day, and I have dogs with a lot of fur. So that was actually the most difficult. It was to manage to actually go through this heat that were hard for the dogs.
So first of all, obviously you're here. What Iditarod number is this?
I'm gonna guess 26. I think no, it's 27th on my. I got bib 27. Should be able to remember 27th run.
Sounds good. Well, we've been watching pretty close. I mean, this is 27th run and another awesome finish. You're kind of the old guy in that lead pack that we were watching going along, and it was really fun to watch this team progress up. They, in many ways, had kind of written you off on the Yukon River. You know, the people on the field weren't really talking much about the guy back there in 20th. But then coming up the coast, just one team after the next, it seemed almost systematic. Yeah. What was kind of your mindset going through that as you were moving up the coast?
Well, once you find yourself sort of out of the front pack almost, you have to figure out what your weapons are and what you can rely on. And I knew that this dog team was super tough and they're capable of being fast. And so speed is kind of relative in a year like this with a lot of snow, but we kept resting them and feeding them and taking care of them well enough that they could keep their speed. And lo and behold, they stayed faster than the other teams around us, and others just started falling off. So it was really something from the standing on the runners to just each run to outrun everybody and pick off a couple more and move up the rankings. So there was no particular strategy other than give plenty of rest and take super good care of the team.
You're gonna have to move.
Come on, Jess, looking good.
Hey.
There it is.
Hi. Morning. You came up the street pretty fast.
Yes, you did.
Fast enough.
Yeah.
We were about ready to pass him. Hi, guys. He said, we know where we're going. Ah. Oh, good talk.
How do you feel it right now?
Oh, just happy to be done. So we got into some pretty good wind coming over the Topcock Hills. So typical for this race, it doesn't want to give up at the end. It's going to be a fight all the way to the finish line. But I had Sniper and Coulter up in the lead, and I couldn't even see them half the time going over the hills. It was pretty severe wind. I left White Mountain. They said it was supposed to be like 10-mile-an-hour winds and tapering off. So I thought, oh, I'm going to have an awesome run into the finish line. It's going to be easy. And then I got out there, and I was in like freaking ground blizzard and snow and blowing and headwind, and I couldn't even see my team. And I'm like, so much for the pleasant trip in. but they did really, really good, though.
I never had to give them a command. They found the trail the whole way in. So.
Jesse, that's 2 third-place finishes in a row for you. Tell me how you're feeling about your performance.
Well, I think it was a pretty competitive year, so I'm still happy with third. You know, yeah, there's just a lot of good teams, and there's a lot of good teams still yet to come in. You know, so I feel pretty honored and privileged to be here in this position, for sure.
We can write another champion's name on the list of Iditarod finishers, and that's Thomas Werner.